Welcome back to Believe in KC. I am really excited about this week's guest, Jared Horman. Would you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Jared Horman, graphic designer, muralist, and Kansas City-based artist.
So, saying before we got started, every time I see a beautiful mural in Kansas City, I wonder if Jared did that one. So, even before we start talking about your work, is there a mural that someone else created in Kansas City that just stopped you in your tracks?
The ones that I really got drawn to were ones that Lance Flores was doing back in like 2015, 2016, 17. And he actually did a workshop through a graphic design conference called Made in the Middle. And is how I got my start. I was like, hey, this hero of mine is offering an opportunity to learn from him. And the thing I learned in that workshop was like, I had the tools, I had the right thought process. I just needed the confidence of like, this is how other people do this as well.
And I guess you're already an artist before that to get to that point.
100%. So have always enjoyed making art, drawing, studied graphic design in high school. And there's a story that my parents love to tell whenever I was like preschool, kindergarten, whatever. And we had like take home homework that our parents had to fill out. And there's like a worksheet that's like, what's your favorite food? Macaroni and cheese, still macaroni and cheese, favorite color, black. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it was like, art teacher or cowboy. So, and I just got a cowboy tattoo today. So those are still happening.
I was going to say, you go down to the West Palm and you boat.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's really cool. So when did you do your first mural?
I think 2018 is the first time I like stepped out and did my own. So I did that workshop, and then my parents live at Lake of the Ozarks, and they moved there when I was in high school. And I was like, what if I just painted the map of the Ozarks? It's this really intricate, dragon is what they call it. So I just painted that with a little dot of like, you're here, and typography that said Lake of the Ozarks. And it's anytime they have their friends come visit, they always take a picture in front of it. And it just,
where is it?
It's just in their garage. So I just did it in my parents' house to be like, can I do this? What does this look like if it's just fully self-directed? And then, so that one went well. And then the first one actually was in the West Bottoms. A photography buddy of mine wanted the phrase "hard isn't bad" like on his wall. And so I did my first like spray paint mural, and it was like this really colorful gradient.
So you see a spray paint mural. I mean, I can't imagine how much prep goes into that before you even start painting it.
Process look like. So I would say, particularly the way I go about murals, there's significantly more upfront work than there ever is actually on the wall. Because my background is graphic design, I do a lot of very like thoughtful, like, hey, what's the message you're trying to convey? And then start designing from there. Are you looking for something that's super branded to what you all do, or are you looking for just something bright, colorful, welcoming, a core message, what have you? So we'll go back and forth with 3 or 4 or even 5 different sketches till we find one we like. And then it's like, okay, now how does this wall function? Then I go, we'll probably hire out if the wall needs to be like tuck pointed or anything like that. And then figure out how much paint I'm going to need, and then we go to work.
So those scan sketches where you just jotting out what you think it would generally look like?
So I do most of it actually like on an iPad using a tool called Procreate, because it's a lot faster, but it's still by hand. There's not still my ideas and my thoughts, but it just lets me sketch and tweak colors and all of that a lot faster.
And then I've got so many questions I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now that you're really excited about?
So the next one is for a brain cancer foundation in Kansas City called Hence for the Cure. They're over on Gillum in Midtown, and it's actually my second cancer-oriented mural this year, which is not something I expected to do, but it's also 10 years since my father was in remission from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it feels like meaningful to me. But so they do races all over the country as fundraising for different centers that do brain cancer research.
So when somebody like that comes to you and asks for a mural, do they have a pretty specific idea what they want in mind, or do they say, hey, this is our idea? What do you think?
Yeah, so most folks come with a framework of hey, we're thinking like we'd like people dancing or whatever. And then I will generally say, okay, I love that. Let's put that to the side. But what is your goal? Like, what is the point of having a mural? So I just did one. That's probably a better example on the side of Passions, Casey, and Westport. And they came to me and they were like, we got this sketch that's like a drag queen kicking a soccer ball into the Kansas City skyline. And it's got a bunch of words. And it's like, we want to do this for the World Cup. And I was like, okay. But what's the goal? Is it that like you're LGBTQ inclusive? Is it that you're a soccer destination of some sort? Is it just like, welcome to Kansas City, welcome to Westport? What's the core message? And they were like, we want to be colorful and welcoming. Like that's it. And I was like, okay. Let me give you some other concepts that I realize aren't at all what you kind of started with, but you were kind of trying to accomplish every single thing. And I think we can do that in a clearer way. And that's how we landed on a different sketch.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. So it was so much fun during the World Cup to have people come all over the world here and realizing that we actually are an urban place with urban things happening, and art is such a huge part of that, particularly murals. But and I'm sure you have some conversations with some out of towners about the mural.
Oh yeah, I mean even while I was working on that one in Westport, had daily people that were out of towners stopping in their cars or on the street to be like, do you have a website? How can I find more of your art? Like I need to know all about this. Like you all seem like such a artistic city, and we are.
Well, that's what this is a little bit off topic, but it's important for our city and I'm so excited for the artery. I think that's got a chance to really expose Kansas City arts like we're talking about.
100%. I think the more that we create easy pathways, frictionless pathways for folks to experience the art that's happening in Kansas City, the art that we already have, and prepare for the future artistic experiences, the more that folks that come here will continue to realize, oh, we are a world-class artistic city. And then a jump step of that is like, yeah, we've had Hallmark's headquarters here forever.
Oh yeah.
And that's an ingesting of artists that then go become whatever. Yeah. Some of them continue doing art after that, or some of them continue to start businesses, restaurants, and reshape our city. So it's in our fabric.
Yeah. And Walt Disney started here too.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you get artists too. It's such a great place, and you can go on. And I think that I think it's one of the reasons that people enjoyed their trips to Kansas City so much this summer is because there is so much artwork everywhere you go. And the other thing I hear about a lot is people want to see a clean city. And I think art just makes a city feel clean.
Yep.
And safe too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, big fan of Jane Jacobs and all the folks that have come after her around city planning, and everyone and all of her contemporaries will talk about public art, murals, make cities feel more comfortable walking in. Cities that people feel more comfortable walking in become safer to walk in because there's more eyes on the streets.
So something that I've heard, and I've never researched this, is that if there's a mural on somewhere, someone is way less likely to graffiti that or paste that mural than they're just a regular wall.
100%. And would hope no one feels inspired by me saying this on this podcast right now. But fingers crossed, none of my murals have ever been tagged, to my knowledge. Because there's a mutual respect of like, someone paid an artist to do this. And I think the interest of like, I, as a graffiti artist, would like to get paid to do that someday. So like, I want to continue to protect that. There seems to be a mutual respect there.
That's awesome. And, if anybody ever gets a chance, and I'm sure you've done it, but, one of the in our walkable, safe city with all this great art, I don't think people realize how close the West Bottoms and the Berkeley Riverfront are to each other.
No.
And all we need to do is get a pedestrian bridge over the railroad tracks, and all of a sudden that's one neighborhood. And there's already, you guys have already done a beautiful job on the riverfront, but there's a chance for even more art on the riverfront. It's fun to think about that.
There's so many spaces for art to continue to activate Kansas City, and think about the way our pedestrians continue to be, because our city, there isn't really that disjointed. Just that we don't have those connection points, which we've been in the last 10 years. I mean, really longer, but like, this is actually the 10th year of me living in Kansas City. I've continued to see, thank you. I've continued to see that happen that it just gets more and more walkable. I went to Rock Island Bridge for the first time, which I tend to go earlier, but I went this week, and I was like, this path and like these apartments right here at this bridge, like if I lived here, this would be my neighborhood bar. And it's such a lovely experience.
Oh, 100%. And I've only been down there for coffees, but I can't wait to go get beer. That is a cool place. And there's more opportunity for art there too on the trail right next to that. And like you said, the apartments, it's really coming to life, and it's cool to see that. And you know, this is getting way far away from murals, but just art in general. People talk about sports driving foot traffic, and I believe that it does, and that's good. The part that we don't talk about enough is how arts drive foot traffic. I mean, if you go to, especially at our city center, there's so many people that are only coming downtown because of arts, and that's such a great economic opportunity for our entire city. And so, yeah, obviously go check out the murals, but there's plays, there's music, there's, you've got the Philharmonic, you name it. There's all sorts of reasons to come celebrate arts in Kansas City. That's not just good for arts, it's also really good for the small businesses.
Yeah, well, that's another book that I am actively reading right now. I guess I'm rereading. It's called The Civic Brand, and like that's the thing that like art in all of its forms makes space for folks to also support the small businesses, and then those small businesses then in turn support the artists, and like that's how we have our own homegrown economy here.
Oh, for sure. And a massive example, that was when Chapter 1 was down. And I was down there Saturday afternoon watching, people were taking public transportation, were just great. And they're walking by the murals, which is great. And then they're walking by the restaurants and the bars and, the retail that we've got. And it's just, this is how a healthy economy is supposed to look.
100%. I think Chapel was a really great pilot drive, so to speak, for FanFest and for everything we've got of like, this is what a weekend where we create this moment in the heart of the city. And then everybody that's coming to it also then wants to see everything else there is to see around it, and our small businesses showed up
for sure. And it's okay, so it's talking about FanFest. As an artist, I've got to ask you, what is the best use of this giant heart? Is there a way to keep it and do it in a way that's safe?
I mean, I do think it needs to be rebuilt with materials meant to last.
Well, I'm just picturing it getting blown away by a tornado or something terrible happening.
Right. I think certainly the structure as it is now, I can't imagine it. But I will say, where it was is probably the most iconic spot.
Oh, you're the first person to mention that, and it is a great spot.
It's an incredible spot, and like, do you know how many people in Kansas City would now go get engaged in that heart with that background? Or even, I mean, it was the iconic photo of Kansas City during the World Cup outside of the stadiums, of course. So like that's as the ripple effect of Kansas City's World Cup hosting continues to go, folks from all around the world have seen that heart and are thinking, I can come see that. So to me, I don't know how it isn't there. I know there's a lot of work with World War I and like figuring out how this could permanently exist, but like, I don't know how that's not a place to consider it. And I also don't know how we don't continue to consider that as a spot for music festivals with how incredible FanFest turned out, how great Chapel was. We could theoretically probably get 3 different stages with great viewing and really make the heart of the city come alive in that spot.
And that's really fun to think about that. And we've proven we can do it.
We've proven we'll do it. We've proven that like it doesn't, like Chapel Roan, whenever her 2 shows were done, people were out within an hour of the concert being done. There wasn't crazy traffic. Folks figured out how to get in and get out. It's very possible.
Well, and the nice thing is, if you're in a situation like that and you're not ready to leave, just go, get a drink and just wait for things to clear out a little bit.
Exactly.
Or get there early, and then you don't have to worry about things. So that, again, goes back to the local small businesses. And they benefit.
Yep, and they benefit from that. And I think on that front, Kansas City is a music city, has been a music city forever, is in the last 5 years got a UNESCO like music designation. And a buddy this week was talking about how like the Grammys are looking at figuring out how they can have more of a pull in Kansas City and start doing like building their like voting body in Kansas City for it.
Yeah.
So there's an energy around the music in Kansas City that is continuing to grow. And I think us creating bigger spaces for artists and bringing in national acts in the heart of the city to continue to shine is a worthwhile investment.
100%. Okay, so I got to ask, for all this beautiful art, most of it is south of the river. I've got a soft spot for the Northland too. Do you have any suggestions on how to get more of this great art north of the river?
It's a good question. I think the more we kind of continue to have things like Zona Rosa, I think that's where it's a lot easier of entertainment districts, gathering spaces. I think that's actually the next chapter in the book is kind of about activating the more like suburban spaces.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. And I'll give our friends in Kansas credit. They've done a really good job about that the last few years building. And you go to downtown Overland Park, it's really nice. And Olathe's kind of doing the same thing now. And it pains me to say that. I'm a Missourian to my core, but credit where it's due there. They've really done some really great placemaking on that side of the state line. I think we can learn from it.
Absolutely. And I think, I think there's definitely space for more spaces like that in the Northland. And I also think activating our parks in a way that has more art, which is both working KCMO parks, working our county parks. I think there's space for those to also be bigger hubs of art. Because there's not as much programming that I hear of like the artistic celebration there that maybe happens south of the river.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And that's probably the challenge in a lot of suburbs all over the country. And so you've got the interesting perspective of having worked at Kansas City and deeply in the arts.
Yep.
What do you think the city should be thinking about going forward, making sure that we're a city that is actively encouraging the arts to happen?
I think one big conversation that I was a part of when working for the city is how are we making sure that any sort of artistic conversation is embedded as early as possible in a project, which does mean revamping the Municipal Arts Commission and the way we curate art and all of those things. But I think that's the only way that like art makes more sense when it's built into a thing versus like, okay, cool. We have money that needs to go towards art. We built this building, so let's find a sculpture to go in it versus, hey, we're designing a building and we know that this is the budget. How do we make sure that like the lighting in the space all makes this art shine? Like the Cloud Gate in Chicago is the epitome of what every city wants for art. And like that project, everything, not just the sculpture, was built for that sculpture to shine, to have that incredible view of the skyline and the lake. So I think that's definitely one of them. I think the other one is really pushing our arts institutions to be forward thinking and to be engaging with community. I think was at a happy hour relatively recently with some other really engaged, excited Kansas Cityans talking about the World Cup and the momentum in the arts. And there was a prominent arts leader sitting on the couch next to us that instead of engaging the conversation, got up and left and like moved away. And I was like, I know you're not working and that's totally fine. You're here to chill, but like, I want the leaders of our organizations to be like, oh, I'm in a space with movers and shakers in Kansas City, and they're talking about the realm that I have oversight over. I want to know what they had to say. I want to jump in. I want to tell them the things that I'm already doing in the direction you're headed.
That is kind of...
It was really, I was like, I actually, like, I realized they were there, and I was like, oh, maybe they're going to jump in. This feels like a good, and then when they did it, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
But clearly, the momentum's there, and you've been a part of that for the last 10 years, so it's got to be pretty rewarding for you to just see how far we've come and hopefully how far we're going to keep going.
Yes. I think there's so much enthusiasm for all of the arts of Kansas City. I guess the last thing that I would say is a realm of opportunity, but I don't necessarily love more taxes, is like, how do we have money that's specifically for our performing arts? You have so much set aside for 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional and structural art, but we don't have governmental support of building the performing arts from the ground up.
Well, that's a good point. And going back to ancient times, governments have valued the arts, and so you can have safe streets and fill potholes and still make sure that you're investing in the arts, which, by the way, we do get a good return on that when we make the decisions on what we're investing in. So No, I'm with you on that. I don't want to get. We wandered into all sorts of big picture stuff, which I loved.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to your work. So, if somebody wanted to see some of your art in Kansas City right now, where would they go?
The easiest place is right in my neighborhood. So down Broadway, I've got 2 murals within 3 buildings of each other. I painted a mural Chaperone whenever she came here that is now like that building on Google Maps is the Chaperone building. Oh, not the name of the apartment. It's literally like chain. It's right by the Uptown Theater, and so many like big name artists that come to perform there now like post pictures like with the mural, and I'm like, this is really cool.
That is really cool.
Which cross streets that at? Basically Broadway in Pennsylvania. Okay. If you just go up a couple buildings right there. And then if you look the other direction, my first biggest mural in 2020 was one I did for World AIDS Day through the Kansas City AIDS Foundation. It's loosely Keith Haring inspired, and I was playing with a lot of like chess inspired art. And so it's like Keith Haring, but chess pieces. But the more interesting part is the phrase that I came up with to put on the side of this building that is a business that was like started as AIDS hospice because hospitals wouldn't help folks that are HIV positive AIDS. And so there's a message that says like, who should I look to be if a generation of leaders and mentors and lovers and thinkers was taken from me? It really came from a place of being a younger leader, younger queer leader, and there not being a generation of people to like advise us on how to do the thing. That so many other communities had their elders, and like and then the at the bottom it said like, don't let stigma keep you from this generation. Like that's the real punchline for both people that I wanted going into that building to feel about themselves, like and for everyone else of like, okay, we do have folks that survived this really terrible experience, this horrible time in our community. Don't ignore them. And like, they may be rough around the edges. Every single person that they were friends with when they were young is dead.
Yeah. One's terrible.
That sucks. So those are 2 murals you can go see. Then if you go into Westport, there's Q Kansas City ZA Bar. I did all the murals with.
I've been in there. That's beautiful. That is great work. Yeah.
I did that with true assistants that really crushed it. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. So last question then, if somebody in Kansas City just is interested in the arts but doesn't really know what's out there, any recommendations for them to see what's going on?
I mean, I think first question would be like, are you looking for something more visual or music or theater? I think that's actually probably a weakness of ours as a city of like, how do you just plop in to find one of those things? I don't know how I'm gonna say.
So I'll give my 9-year-old daughter is just, she's a great artist, and she mostly draws, but she, just a great artist, and we're trying to get her as much exposure as we can. And she's been doing a lot of art this summer in different clinics and summer camps and stuff like that.
I love that, and like I think was reflecting recently that my parents did put me in a couple of like art camps for like, I found a stained glass piece that I made when I was in the 3rd grade. It's just like 3 pieces of glass and soldered together, but I'm like, these experiences did help shape me and make space for me to be able to like feel like I could be an artist, even completely different mediums down the road.
So that is so cool. And I'll tell you, and this will mean more to you than it does to me probably, or you'll understand it better. But if I was going to just draw a picture, it would look shitty for sure. But I do my best and try to draw a picture. My 9-year-old daughter, she's just able to see what she sees and then put it on paper, and it's so remarkable to me that people can do that. And so it's been fun to see the world through her eyes, and just wow, she actually is really paying attention to what's around her, and she's able to show that. It's been fun to watch. And that's the beauty of creativity is that like, so that's where it starts of like, hey, I can just get the thing in my brain onto the ground or onto this piece of paper, and then it becomes, okay,
But now that I've made it to this piece of paper, what can I take it to next? And so for me, that's become murals.
Yeah.
I felt, and it's like never would I have expected that the fact that I never paid attention in school and I doodled on the side of every single notebook, and every teacher was always like, Jared's not paying attention, but he gets an A, so I guess it's fine. Because I read the homework before I came to class, but and I just doodled, and like now it's become a whole career. Government is a household. It's not a business. And like, not everyone in the household gets along, but we have to figure out how to keep the household functioning. And like, you can't just have everyone support every single event.
100%. And you know, I'm pretty pro development, and I've got no problem incentivizing good projects. I mean, you may not land on the same landing place. You can work together or could do it on agree with. And it's so much easier if everybody's got a space.
And we have, as a culture, become such a culture that doesn't want to work together. That like, we're just continuing to foster that by not putting people in a space where they could have healthy conflict. We could, as we have demonstrated with the World Cup, continue to demonstrate that we're actually a city full of functioning humans that all like do believe in a better Kansas City, even if we all have a different vision of what that looks like. Of like, I'm a good person. I believe that. And I am friends with good people that are all from Missouri. And Missouri raised us and allowed us to be the people that believe in a brighter future today. And so, like, if we don't stick around to clean up the mess and figure out how we can get folks to stay around, or folks to, like, understand that, like, they built us. Missouri made us into the people that believe this. Yeah, so
I'm 100% with you. And you said that much better than I ever could have.
It's right way up there. It's a philosophy I've continued to evolve in. And so for me, that's why I'm getting a series of Missouri tattoos, because I'm like, I'm just as much Missouri as anyone else. I was born in Smithville, Missouri, grew up in St. Joe, went to high school, Lake of the Ozarks, went to Missouri State.
I thought you went to St. Joe Christian. You went to high school.
I did go to St. Joe Christian, and then transferred. My parents moved to Lake of the Ozarks. So junior and senior year were at Camden High School.
Okay. That's probably a big shock from
St. Joe Christian. I had a class of 20 people to a class of 350.
Big school, yeah.
My proudest thing, though, is that I still ended up graduating top 10 in my class.
Nice.
I went from a school that had no weighted grades to a school that everyone that I was in competition with, they weighted everything at type.
Nice.
Well done. So it ended up being a great thing, even though the move was not a thing I was excited about.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I didn't know actually when you did that.
Yeah.
And your parents are still there?
Yeah. No, they're both retired. This is a fun anecdote. So my dad's a big hunter. My whole life. I've never been a big hunter, but I've sat on a deer stand plenty. Do you hunt or fish?
So I'll tell you a quick story you got to know. I'll tell you why.
Okay. So in 2015, I think, or 2010, Missouri Conservation reintroduced elk.
Oh, yeah.
To Southeast
I went down to Craig Ranch. I took my kids, and I've been there and I've seen them.
Okay, so then you're familiar with the fact that they also only give out 5.
Yeah, that's
why it's possible to get 10,000 people on average apply it every year. And he's applied every single year since 2020. And he actually, the same day, he got like a not great health diagnosis of like, hey, so the pain you're experiencing is just a side effect of having had chemo and you're going to live with it the rest of your life. Is the same day he found out he got the tag. And he was like, well, this is my motivation to like push through and do PT and do everything to be in the best state that I can so that I can go hunting with all my buddies and my sons this fall. So awesome. So now you good phase of this year. Oh, that's awesome. He's going elk hunting this fall. And I'm like, I'm very excited for him. And I'm also like, okay, so that's the thing with retirement and life. Like, you just need your elk tag.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to live for. That's so cool. There's not many people who valuably shot elk in Missouri.
He said, and so we were talking so 2020 was the first year. Last year was the first time that 2 people didn't use their tags. So for whatever reason. So he will be 1 of 5 this year, and then there's 20 other people have shot an elk.
That is
in the state of Missouri.
That is so cool.
Yeah. He's pretty excited. Okay. Yeah. How about your hunting story?
No, so mine is not nearly that cool. Mine's like not even close to that. But no, I went deer hunting one time. I was 5 years old, had the chicken pox, and my sort of in 1987, and my dad drove us up to Putnam County, where our family is from. It's on with my mom's uncle, and I had a chicken box, but they didn't care. So it was snowing. It was an early snowing, November snow. So we're in this deer stand. And I got chicken pox. It's freezing cold, and then my dad shot a deer and wasn't very clean shot, so the deer ran off. And then they went to look for my mom's uncle and my dad, and me, of course, with chicken pox. And somebody had stolen a deer, right? So you could see that the blood marks along the snow dragging it over to the neighboring property. And my uncle, who's a really nice guy, did not like that neighbor very much. So then it kind of like they got mad at each other, not at each other, but they got mad at the neighbor. They were trying to find the deer, and I still had the chicken pox. So that was my one deer hunting story. That was enough for me.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've been back since 1987. I mean, that feels like. I think the last time I was on a deer stand with my dad, it was like raining and was like 40 degrees, and I was like, similar to my stance with going to Arrowhead. If it is close to freezing and I am getting wet, it's probably not for me.
It's a pretty good rule.
The number of times that I've said yes to going to a game and it's always been a cold one, I'm like, this, yeah. I'm a fan. I'm not that big of a fan. Not losing fingers fan.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, they get the Dolphins a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Ooh. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and see if you'd be interested in doing something for them, how would they do that?
My website is jaredhorman.com. Is a good way to kind of feel a little bit more, but also Instagram tends to be the way that most folks reach out initially, and then I'll pivot then to, hey, shoot me an email. ormanjared@gmail.com.
Jared, thank you so much for being here. This is really fun. And man, like I said, I always look for your art, but now I'm going to look for it even harder than usual.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I love Kansas City. I believe in Kansas City and its artistry and future. So excited that you're passionate about it as well.
That wraps up this episode of Believe in KC. Thank you again for being here. And remember, go check out his website. Contact Jared on Instagram. He's doing great work.